Ben and Scott, again, thank you so much for giving up some time tonight and being here with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello,
Loving
Ben.
it out here.
Pardon me?
I said I'm loving it out here. Nice and warm. I'm glad to hear it's warm for you guys.
It is. Are you coming back anytime soon?
Yeah, I will be there kind of mid-April. I gotta go home, and my actual my tax account is out there. So I got to make sure my taxes are done, and then I'll be there a couple weeks before PrepperCon to get ready for it.
Well, sounds good. So let me ask you, if it's okay, Scott. I'm going to ask him a couple things. If we could
Please
go
do.
a little different direction for a little bit. Of course, we're talking about PrepperCon, but of course, anybody that is into ufology or paranormal has heard of Ben Hansen, and of course his show on Sci-Fi, Fact or Fake Paranormal Files. And all the different things you do. I saw that you were down at the Fountain Hills event this year, again.
Yeah, I was International UFO Congress.
What happened? What happened down there? Tell us. Give a little update.
Well, the big news coming out of Arizona. This is still the largest UFO annual conference in the world. And I think the numbers aren't back, but I think they had the greatest attendance this year. It was quite packed. We had the Science Channel. We had several people filming down there. And the big speaker that everyone was anticipating was Bob Lazar, the famous Area 51 worker who came out, and George Knapp, the Las Vegas reporter, breaking the story back in the 80s. Of Area 51, or
Right.
I guess it maybe in the 90s. Yeah, it was the mid-90s. And so he's been kind of in hiding, not very public at all, and they were able to get him to come and do a Q&A. I don't think he dropped any big bombshells, but the general consensus is, if you guys remember the Bob Lazar story, he claims that he worked for a couple weeks at Area 51 and was taken to a special area of the base where he back engineered flying saucers.
Right.
And that he, when people went and did his kind of looking into his background, they couldn't find his school records. He said he worked at White Sands, missile laboratory, and a lot of things didn't pan out. However, he had passed a polygraph, maybe two of them, I can't remember, but the consensus has kind of gone back and forth that maybe this guy really is telling the truth, and I think that was the general feeling from the people at the conference.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know that there's some. I mean, you talk to Stanton Friedman about it, and of course he's one of the big anti-Lazar people. But I was surprised. I had heard that he was sick for a while, and I know he's got some little private company in Michigan, I believe. And then he resurfaced again after, like you said, after 20 years.
Yeah, and talking to George Knapp, he gave me a video that I haven't gone through, methodically and analyzed yet. But I did an analysis of a Bill Clinton interview on Jimmy Kimmel, and when he asked him about UFOs and aliens and his efforts to uncover, the truth. And I broke this thing apart and made it 36 minutes long. So George Knapp talked about it on Coast to Coast, and he said, hey, would you mind maybe, taking a look at this Bob Lazar interview I just did and seeing if you can find anything. And to be honest, I just haven't had the time. My general feeling, though, was if this guy's a liar, he's a very good liar. There's not really overt signs and indications that he's not being truthful.
Right.
So if you allow me, I can transition to something that's breaking right now.
Yes, for sure.
The biggest story going on right now, if anybody had watched President Obama's interview with Jimmy Kimmel just what day are we on? Saturday? It was Thursday night.
Right.
And so this comes less than a year, I believe, after he interviewed Clinton, and he asked him about his efforts. And we're very curious. I'm working with Lee Spiegel of the Huffington Post, who's listening in right now. Might be able to get him to call in if you're interested. But
yeah, we had Lee on the show just 2 weeks ago. He was here.
Oh, you did. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Lee
pick up the
and
phone, Lee, call.
He was trying to find a way to email, so maybe he'll give us a call. So we're trying to kick out this story right now because this is how it broke down, and this is quite exciting for me and a little daunting. So I give Lee a call because I had some work to do, and I didn't stay up to watch Jimmy Kimmel. I knew Obama was going to be on, but apparently, because Kimmel is so interested in this topic, and I'd like to know why. I want to know, what is the personal interest for him? We've been trying to reach out to him to interview him and talk to his people. Well, apparently, on Thursday night, he asked President Obama, and he sets up the interview by saying something like, now, there's some questions I want to ask you about a topic, but before I ask you, I want you to be aware that there are people out there who are going to analyze every little gesture and every little movement of your face to see if you're telling the truth. Jimmy Kimmel, without using my name, was referring to my video that I did on President Clinton. So here he is talking to the President of the United States about analysis I did and warning the President.
Very good.
So when I see this, apparently the LA Times had done a story just that same day, and Lee Spiegel points it out to me and says, yeah, well, one of the staffers of Kimmel probably saw that he was coming on and wrote this article. Then, Kimmel, his staffers see this, and whether he was planning on it or not, they put the bug in Kimmel's ear. He watches the interview and talks to Obama about this. So long story short, if you watch the interview, Obama uses a lot of humor. He doesn't really ever answer the question. Now, it's such a short segment, there's not a whole lot that we can glean out of it. But when you take it into the larger context, I'm scrambling right now amidst all the preparations for PrepperCon to do some type of video response to this, because there are some very interesting things when you look at how President Obama answers the question about, did he look into the alien UFO topic? And we'll have that video analysis out. I think Lee's working on a story as we speak, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, that I saw quite a bit of stuff come through the internet about that, and he really put him on the spot.
He did, and as you know, and this is not, it doesn't need to be a political thing,
right?
But as you know, when certain people are under stress, they have tells.
Right.
They have things that leak, as we call it, through. So gestures and nonverbals coming through of the stuff they're really saying. My conclusion will say something to the fact that regardless of what he's thinking, why he's nervous, we don't really know, but he exhibits extreme discomfort with this topic.
We got a call on another line. You want to take a quick call?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Caller, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk. You're on with Ben and Scott.
Are you talking to me by any chance?
Yes.
Well,
there's a voice I know from the East Coast.
Ben Hansen is such a fraud, I have to tell you. I mean, he thinks he knows everything about UFOs and finding a pig's foot to do sutures. We used to be friends before we met when I started working at the Huffington Post. And I'm almost ashamed to say who I am now because Ben is just embarrassing me. Hello, guys. It's Spiegel in New York.
Lee, good evening. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Nice to be here. This Obama thing. I was telling Ben the other day that I think Obama is such a clever guy. He and Clinton were like gleaned from the same cleverness. They know how to take a subject like UFOs and turn it around to make people laugh and almost disbelieve what they're saying. And there was an exchange the other night. It was at the end of the exchange between Kimmel and Obama. It's interesting. Obama was on the show for 3 segments. Out of those 3 segments, they only talked about UFOs for 1 minute and 35 seconds. and because they had so many other more pressing, more important things to talk about. But near the end of their little discussion, Kimmel asked the president, Kimmel said, if I was the president, I'd go through everything to find out what happened with the UFOs. Did you do that? And Obama said, well, that's why you will not be president, because that's the first thing that you would do. And Kimmel said, but did you look? Did you see? Did you explore it? And Obama said, I can't reveal anything. And he was smiling and laughing, and the audience was reacting. And Kimmel said, oh, really? Because President Clinton said he did go right in, and he did check, and there was nothing. And Obama responded, well, that's what we're instructed to say. And he smiled, and he laughed, and the audience did. And I sat here watching it, and I thought, oh, you're like a magician, Mr. President. You use misdirection to kind of take the audience away from what you're really doing or saying. I think that when he said that that's what we're instructed to say, I think he was telling the truth.
Yeah, I agree.
But he was clouding it in such a way that, how talk about some other things, I mean, immediately, as soon as he said that, that's what we're instructed to say, then the very next thing that Kimmel said was, okay, well, Mr. President, I'd like to know, when you're at home in the White House in the middle of the night, can you run down to the kitchen in your underwear and make yourself a sandwich? So that was the transition out of UFOs.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think the president left him. That's a great point, Lee, because I don't think the president left him really anywhere to go with it. It's not like he gave him a bread trail, a crumb, trail to follow and ask follow-up questions. And my jury, my personal jury, my verdict is still out as to what it all means, because I haven't done the thorough analysis yet. But I think there is enough to say that, like Lee said, using humor continuously. This is not the only time that he has used humor on this exact same subject. In fact, publicly, I don't think he's ever taken it seriously. And
right.
If you look at his top advisors, and you have Podesta, who our friend Bryce Zabel has done a great summary on it and his connection there. Podesta tweets, was it not more than a couple weeks ago, Lee?
That's right, yeah.
I think it was just a few weeks ago. Podesta has been brought in as a special advisor to Obama. And it's no secret that Podesta was an advisor to the Clintons, and one of his agendas was disclosure. He's been very public about that. He wants UFO disclosure. And so he tweets a few weeks ago that his biggest failure in his kind of administration, or his working in the federal government, was not bringing about disclosure.
Well,
so you have to wonder, during this period that he's advising Obama and he's brought on board for a little bit, you'd have to wonder that did he not at some point try to put a bug in Obama's ear and at least make him understand, look, this is not an entirely laughing matter. So why would the president come out at every public opportunity and turn it into a joke?
Right.
And to clarify what we should make everybody aware of, it was actually about a year ago where it was announced that John Podesta, former White House chief of staff under Clinton, was now taking on this new responsibility as the new counsel for President Obama. And so I wrote a story about it a year ago, as did most media organizations. And the question that I put at the end of my story was, well, now that he's going to have the ear of this president, wouldn't we all like to be a fly on the wall on some of those Oval Office discussions where Podesta is probably going to bring up the subject of UFOs? So as Ben said, a few weeks ago, when Podesta tweeted that it was now his final day at the White House working for Obama, and over the past year, his biggest regret was not getting UFO disclosure. Some people took him serious, and other people thought he was just being funny. Right. So it's hard to tell with these politicians whether they're being truthful or not. You have to dig in between the lines to figure it out.
I got a question, just with you both on the line. What's your thoughts? And Ben, you being down at the conference, what was this big Tom Carey thing with the picture of the alien, and that was going to be disclosed, and people were going to see it? And now it's somewhere else in Mexico. Or what was that whole debacle?
Well, you don't even get me started on this, because I'm not happy about this recent development of a couple of slides that are claimed to be from the late 1940s, that even the slide sleeves that the slides are sitting in say Kodachrome, and the story goes that Kodak has supposedly confirmed that the emulsion on these two slides was actually emulsion from Kodak in the 1940s. And what everybody's talking about is that these two slides seem to show an alien body on some type of a table with glass over it, and almost on display. And this story's been out for a couple of years now, and yet it's moving slowly to the revelation coming up in May in Mexico City, in this big, gigantic arena where Mexico UFO personality Jaime Maussan is going to be like the ringmaster of this, like he's done before, and the pictures are going to be revealed. But Ben, why don't you take it from there?
Well, Lee and I have been going back and forth on this for a while, because I thought it would be a great story for him. I actually met and personally seen the slides with the owner, Adam Dew. He's one of the owners of it. He's based out of Chicago. So I do believe that Adam is a legit guy. I don't think he's involved in a hoax. It doesn't fit the profile, especially because, to be honest, once you look at the slides, they're kind of underwhelming. But there's some mystery surrounding the speculation of what they could be. For example, it appears that the geologist who these belong to, he and his wife, traveled the world in some very elite circles. So possibly a connection with President Eisenhower, with some famous actors of the time. The other slides have a lot of these pictures in that would suggest that they traveled in these elite circles. It's been suggested that maybe they were even international spies. But you can go however far you want with it, but we can't confirm where these were taken. We do have a time frame when it was taken, but when you get to the actual picture, that's what's going to be revealed in the documentary. And unfortunately, Adam kind of felt like he invested so much in this documentary, even though, I would say Jaime Maussan is a friend or acquaintance of mine. Jaime has no filter, and he knows that. He's the George Norrie of Mexico, but he does not press people. He will take any hoaxer and present it to the world, and he just wants a good story. That's all he really cares about.
Well, how did Tom Carey get involved with this, though? He was kind of the one that I thought had him in his vault somewhere.
Well, Tom Carey and Don Schmidt, also good friends of ours. Tom Carey, Don is actually the one who first told me about this. He linked me up to Adam, and these guys are, the who's who of Roswell research. And so anything that comes to them that's a possibility, they're going to jump on. They've never been on the bandwagon of, this is proof. I think Tom maybe jumped the gun a little bit, and when we all signed these non-disclosures not to talk about the slides, I think he got a little bit anxious and probably said something before he should have, and maybe embellished what we actually had verified. And I say we. I'm not involved in it in only that I was trying to get the documentary out and trying to help Adam find a venue for it. And eventually he said, look, I've put in all this money. Jaime has the power. He's got the money. He's got a way to get it to the world. You decide if that's the best way. Because if it sort of starts to come out like a circus. And when I talked to Adam down in Mexico, or I'm down in Arizona, he knows that, and he knows that this looks phony when it comes out through Jaime's channels. But but it's a way to get it out. And May 5th is the big reveal. I think he's revealing the whole documentary. I don't know how it's going to be distributed, but he really does want the truth. I do feel like he wants to know if anyone can tell us, yeah, I've seen that. That's a mummy. That's in such and such museum. He just wants answers.
What about this? You know, every UFO. I mean, if you turn on John B. Wells' program, you know, on Sunday nights here, the Alien File thing, we've got the famous alien autopsy, and now that's starting to go back and forth. Whether that wasn't it the guy that Max Headroom was the guy that did that, was supposedly involved with that big hoax.
The Centilli film you're talking about?
Yeah.
Centilli?
Yes.
Yeah, and that also turned out to be one of those stories where nobody could prove, and there were things about the differences about how the doctors who were there, they were wearing gloves or surgical gloves that apparently weren't good for the time when they were supposed to have been distributed. These are, I mean, the year difference was wrong. The clothing that they wore was not supposed to be correct. But what happens with these kinds of stories is whoever is behind them, they get a massive publicity budget, and they tease and tease the audience like crazy. I mean, the last time that even Jaime Maussan was involved with something that teased people was a few years ago. He was promoting this thing about a monkey that was supposedly an alien monkey, and they posted pictures and they were going to reveal it. And he was, like I said, he was the ringmaster, you know, the new P.T. Barnum of the paranormal. And, you know, I think that because when you try and tease the audience without a payoff, I'm so tired of this. We've had this going on for decades. It's like when they finally show these slides and the clarity of whatever the thing is that's under glass, when they do this in May, the big question really is, does it prove anything? And you get a big no. It doesn't. It just doesn't prove anything. And Ben and I have had a lot of discussions about this. It's like we go through the same thing every time a new Bigfoot story or video comes to light, and that's like once a week now.
Oh yeah, they're coming out like crazy.
I mean, really, Pat, it's so bizarre. And lately, both Ben and I have had commenters to my stories kind of picking us apart and pushing us up against the wall and saying, why are you guys wasting our time? Why are you guys even spending time looking at these things if they're obvious hoaxes? Don't you have anything better to write about and to tell us about? Well, you know what? No, because this is a gigantic needle in a cosmic haystack.
Yeah.
You know, looking for that one Bigfoot, that one alien, that one real ghost, the one true psychic phenomena that can be demonstrated in a moment when you ask somebody to do it. I mean, these are tough things to come up with, and if we just decided not to ever talk about them anymore, or for me to not write about them anymore, really, I might as well just go get a job in a fast food restaurant and not deal with the public at all, because that would be so much easier on me. Or maybe I'll become one of Ben's targets at his firearms seminars. I mean, sometimes I get so frustrated with the public's attitude because people want to know. They want to have answers, and they're not getting those answers. And it seems like the hardcore skeptics and debunkers are just always having a field day, and it's really difficult.
Well, we I think that the general public, guys, they need more than 2 slides. There's.
Yeah.
I'm hoping someday one of you or somebody can come up with something that's just there's no doubt about it.
Well, I hope so too. I happen to believe. I never say this in any of my stories because I try to keep it as neutral as possible, but I do believe, just based on all the conversations I've had over decades with government people, military people, law enforcement officers, airline pilots, military pilots. I have a general good sense that there's a big belief, official belief out there that we're being visited by something, by someone. I'm very comfortable with that. But I can't personally prove it. And until such time as somebody can, all I can do is report on it. And I also don't think, Pat, I came to this conclusion a while ago. There's not going to be UFO disclosure,
Right.
the way everybody's hoping and praying for. It's not going to happen. It's too involved. It's too complex. I don't think the governments of the world know enough about it. And I think that the responsibility of UFO disclosure is squarely on the shoulders, the little shoulders, of the visitors themselves. That's where it has to come from.
Where we see something that nobody can, the whole world sees something they can't dispute.
I would think so.
Yeah.
The Earthlings, people have the ability to bounce back from frightening encounters or experiences. If it happens en masse to people, we have that ability to experience something and then get over it and then move on with our lives. And no one government is going to take the responsibility and admit that there are things that are operating in our skies all around the planet. They can come and go as they wish. They don't seem to be aggressive. The only ones who are showing any aggression are the Earthlings themselves, who have been trying to chase them and shoot them down for decades.
Right.
They obviously have their own agenda for why they're here watching us, for how long they've been doing it. We don't know. And anybody who tells you differently, they're just blowing smoke out their butt because they just don't know. We couldn't possibly know how an extraterrestrial intelligence even thinks.
Yeah.
You know, they could consider us on the evolutionary scale the way we would think of an amoeba or a paramecium.
Right.
You know, so we just cannot tell. I say to the extraterrestrials, you know what? If you don't want us to see you, turn your damn lights off.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more simple can this be? However, they're not turning their lights off, so they know what they're doing. They know that we're seeing them. They know people are videotaping them. They know that people are reporting them. They know what they're doing, and they probably don't care how we react to it. And that's, you know, it's a frustrating thought.
I agree with you.
It kind of feels like a little kid with a fish tank. They like to tap on the glass just to see how we respond.
Oh, I do it. I do it every day. At the Huffington Post in our newsroom, my editor, Buck Wolf, has this giant aquarium that's stuffed with freshwater tropical fish. And my job at the end of the day, I'm the designated sun god, which means that when I leave at the end of the day, I turn the light off on the fish tank. So I turn off the sun, and I always will stop by the tank, and I'll put my finger up to it, and several fish will actually come over to my finger as if to acknowledge me as the sun god. Now, I'm not letting it go to my head. Come on now.
A question, Lee, a question for you somebody sent in, and I think I know what the answer is, but the question is, I think, this is from Bob on the East Coast, says, I think we already know, regardless of the governments, that this stuff is out there, and he assumes that Lee would concur that there is something there.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that even the Vatican, people turn to the Vatican for the ultimate answers of things like this. Do you know that most people don't realize that the Vatican has not just one, but two astronomical observatories, one in Italy and one on a mountaintop in Arizona, and they have a whole team of Jesuit brothers who are planetary astronomers. And I say, what are they looking for?
What is the name of that is it Lazarus, or what is the name of that other observatory? Or Lucifer?
Well.
No, I'm serious.
I don't know. Are you talking about the one in Arizona?
I think so. I think it's called Lucifer.
It started with an L. I've seen it before.
It's Lucifer.
It is?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is.
The Lucifer Observatory.
And all three of us now are typing at Google, right?
No.
We are. Well,
it's
Mount Graham. I'm pretty sure, or maybe I'm wrong.
Or maybe they were building something called some super observatory called Lucifer.
Well, I know that they call it. It's called the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope, or VATT, and I'm looking up to see if I can find the actual.
Here you go. I love it. This is how we all work, huh? What I'm finding is that the Vatican Observatory is different than the Lucifer Observatory, but I'll have in a minute here.
But there is one called Lucifer, correct?
It makes mention of it here. Yeah. So I don't know what that looks at.
Well, there is a link that I've just found that actually begins with a headline. It just says Vatican and Lucifer. And it says that apparently that there was some misinformation that was circulating on the web for a few years, claiming that the Vatican astronomers were naming some telescope Lucifer.
Yeah.
And apparently that's not quite true. Do I win some free tickets for something because I came up with this?
Yeah, they're in the mail.
I'm gonna win like my chance to get my own pig sport so I can learn how to do the sutures.
It is. It's just like the check, Lee. It's in the mail.
It's in the mail. Well, I
Lee,
think that
we're speaking about. Sorry about that. Speaking about, I was just saying, bringing the prepper aspect into it. You were in the middle of this massive snowstorm and couldn't even go to work for a while, right? Out there in New York.
Yeah, it really was. I've been in New York since 1970, and this was like by far the worst period of snow and freezing temperatures. It was just impossible to get around. And luckily, I can do a lot of Huffington Post work from home, so I can work remotely. But even just trying to get around in the local neighborhoods was impossible because they couldn't get the snow plows and the sanders out fast enough, and there were accidents happening everywhere, and people were getting sick everywhere. Just amazing. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people blamed it on microbes from outer space or something.
Well, see, that would have been a good time to have your skills of home hypnobirthing, right? If you were going to have a baby there, you could have practiced that because you couldn't have gotten out of your house to go anywhere.
Hopefully you're not pregnant, though.
No, well, see, Ben, you should be having this conversation with yourself about having a baby. And I mean, come on now, almost newlywed.
Yeah, congratulations, Ben. I forgot to tell you that.
Well, let's not put the cart before the horse, though. He's not even married yet, guys. Give him a chance.
Yes, I know. I'm looking forward. I haven't even told Ben this. I just found out that Ben and I are both going to be doing presentations later this year for the 40th anniversary of the Travis Walton Abduction Conference.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I didn't know that you were final for that.
The
40th anniversary.
They asked me if I would like to come, and I said, who are some of the other speakers who are going to be there? And as soon as I heard the name Ben Hansen, I thought, well, let me think about it for a minute. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I mentioned, Lee, last time you were on a couple weeks ago about Steve Pierce. We had him on, and like I mentioned it during the show, and I think we both agreed with it, is that I think all those guys, something happened to them. I know Steve just came out with his new book recently, and he's actually reached out to come back on again. But I think myself, it was Travis wasn't the only victim there.
Well, it's true, and I'm glad that these men have consistently stayed true to the original story, having the experience of passing the polygraph. Now, Ben, you would probably know more about this than I. Did they, in fact, all pass the original lie detection years right after the event happened?
Well, the one Alan, I believe it was. His test came back inconclusive.
Okay.
I do believe he took it later though and did pass. Yeah, he passed, and many of them have taken it multiple times. I think Travis has taken it 5 or 6 or more times. And when you add that up statistically, even when you take into account that it's not a perfect instrument, you statistically multiply how many times they've taken it and what the percentage of error is, and you're really looking at a 1 in millions, if not billions, chance that they're being deceptive.
Yeah, and anybody who meets Travis Walton, you can't help but get the sense that this is a guy who probably is not in the habit of lying much about anything. He's just a really genuine, warm, friendly man who would almost prefer to go out of his way to not be involved with this stuff, much like Robert Lazar, who spent, 20, 25 years out of the limelight talking about
hiding up in Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think Travis has always had this overwhelming need, because he believes what happened to him. Yeah. I think he wants to let other people know that there is something going on that our government officials aren't telling us about, if they know about this, and that people should know what's going on here. You've got experiencer groups that take place all around the country now at the UFO Congress in Arizona and other major conferences. They actually have experiencers who come in. The press is not allowed into these sessions. Only some professional people, counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, and you as a potential UFO or alien abductee can feel comfortable going in and talking about what you think happened to you with no fear of ridicule. Right. And I welcome that, because it doesn't matter whether or not you might have dreamed it or had a hallucination about it, or maybe under hypnosis it was programmed somehow into you, or in fact if the experience really happened to you, it has had an effect on you, and people want to feel comfortable because they have to live with this for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very big thing.
Well, Steve Pierce, Ben, I don't know if you're aware of this. He lived down in Provo. His daughter's still in Provo. He was down here, and he's been in Utah forever. Now he's in Maine. Had some great conversations with him, and he's finally coming forth with his new book. Not to make any money, but they just know that something happened, and they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met with Steve, and he's also kind of interested in the Skinwalker Ranch thing. Yeah, I know he lived out towards Vernal, and wanted to go talk to him about that stuff. But I'd be interested to read his book. I know it's been kind of interesting between him and Travis. I do feel kind of like I'd like to separate what might be some jealousies there. There's nothing to be jealous of. If you know what Travis has gone through,
right?
He wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But when Travis decided to come back out and start talking, it seems like that's when Steve and his stories started coming forward. So I would like to see what he's saying. If he's claiming that he too was abducted and had some, repressed memories that weren't there originally. It'd be interesting to see what he's saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw at the Congress. I didn't get a chance to get down there, but I've had a couple phone calls with Charlie Foltz with the Allagash incident, and him and Jim are kind of doing a little bit of the circuit. And boy, another amazing story. And now they're at an age where they're willing to talk about it.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of cases like that where what I try to do, and Lee, I didn't hear the interview that when Lee was on not too long ago, but Lee's had spectacular experience, and I've had a few myself, and I try. It's hard when you're working in this business. It's really hard, and I think Lee will attest to it, to not try and interject yourself into the story and say, "Is there a bigger purpose for me personally? Why am I so interested in it?
Oh yeah.
Have I been a victim?" And it's kind of hard because you start to feel kind of paranoid and funny and whatever. And I in no way feel that I was a victim of anything. I just think I've had some really cool sightings, but. You kind of dive into this and you surround yourself by it, and you're looking for threads. And it's the same thing like when we talk about PrepperCon and stuff. Like if you feel you sort of have a calling in life, and your things start to fall into place. I never would have guessed that I would have been hosting an international TV show. When I was interested by watching E.T. as a kid and was fascinated by aliens and UFOs and read books and never thought I'd be where I was now, internationally, hosting shows or appearing at events and having, Jimmy Kimmel talk to your videos about the president. It's very, very strange, but there are those threads in life that I think do lead you to kind of, maybe one of your purposes. So it's just hard not to personalize everything.
I felt kind of the same way back in 1978 when I came up with an idea that I thought that if anything was going to be disclosed about UFOs, it couldn't just come from our government. It couldn't come from our president or from Congress. It had to be a unilateral global announcement at the United Nations, because after all, isn't that kind of what the United Nations is supposed to be about?
Yes.
Taking care of the planet and making announcements that affect the planet, et cetera, et cetera. So that's when I kind of came up with the idea of maybe trying to do something at the UN to try and get the countries of the world to come together and to at least create some kind of a study committee where UFO information could be shared from country to country because of all the language problems and difficulties of just kind of working with each other and looking at this phenomenon. People kept saying to me, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You won't be allowed to go to the United Nations, and don't even try knocking on their door because they'll just think you've been smoking too much crack and they'll send you home." And I just wanted to try it to see if it could be done, and if it couldn't be done, fine. Then I would have learned my lesson. And it's like what Ben was just saying. You never know when something is going on in your life, how it's going to turn out, how it's going to progress. You might envision it like a movie unfolding in your mind about how you'd like things to kind of progress, but sometimes it's tough to know exactly what the outcome will be. And fortunately for me, I was able to take this all the way to the UN, and we had an amazing presentation, and people still write about it and talk about it, and I'm proud of it. And it hasn't happened since then, and that was 1978. So that's part of the reason why I don't think there's going to be disclosure, because, boy, you know what? If it was going to happen, it would have happened, I thought, somewhere between 1978 and today. And it hasn't happened, so there's a bigger reason for this that people just don't get. I don't even fully understand it, but I do know that it's true.
Right. Exactly. I did get the definition on Lucifer, and that is the Vatican's, that is their thing. And what Lucifer stands for is Large Binocular Telescope, Near Infrared, Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research, hence the acronym Lucifer.
Yeah, and that I was going to say that, but I wanted you to come up with it first.
And you willed that to me, Lee, I know.
Well, that's it's the same thing. The question that I've raised before is people will always wonder, why does the Vatican have a real strong interest in astronomy? What are they looking for out there? Well, gee, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of questions with a lot of answers.
Well, they've got all those pictures in the Vatican with the flying saucers in them.
I know, and you've got in recent years many Vatican officials saying that they would have no problem. Even the Pope himself last year said at one of his famous speeches that if Martians were to land and ask to be baptized, who are we to say no?
Right.
I mean, come on, Pope Francis. Really? You had to say that?
Yeah.
Just cover
it's like he's trying to subliminally put ideas into our heads, right?
Right. I agree. So what's on your plate, Lee? What you got going on next?
Well, today just published a story, and I'm happy to say there was not a UFO or Bigfoot anywhere in this story. This was a piece that I've been working on for a while about the Superstition Mountains in Arizona, where there's this legendary lost gold mine called the Lost Dutchman Gold Mine.
Yes.
It's being featured on the History Channel series, and I've been working on this, and I just wanted to do it because it's the whole idea is breathtaking. People are always attracted to buried treasure, hidden treasures, and the dangers of it. So I've been working on that. That happened today. And as Ben was saying before, my next story is going to be my take on the Jimmy Kimmel President Obama UFO minute and a half that they spent together on Thursday night.
Start churning through it.
Yeah, I just want to get it out there, so at least, because if I don't write something about it, people will come back to me and say, well, how come you're with Huffington Post? Why didn't you have something to say about this?
Right.
What's wrong with you?
Right.
Why are you wasting our time again?
Exactly. And then Ben,
yeah.
we just got a couple minutes left here. You're going to be doing the analysis, and then of course Scott, who's in the studio. You guys are both doing PrepperCon here in Salt Lake City.
Yep, that's my biggest thing coming up is next activities there, and then I'm off to Australia, touring a few cities, doing some paranormal conferences there, and hopefully we'll be back in Utah and doing some type of a UFO event this summer.
That would be great. We need one.
Oh, I have to ask you a quick question, Pat.
Sure.
How far away are you from the actual legendary Skinwalker Ranch out there?
But what, Ben? 2.5 hours?
Yeah, not too far.
I am so fascinated by that whole thing, that whole story, the mystique about it. That's an amazing place.
Come on out, Lee. I'll put you up.
Yeah, we'll bring you out.
Down there. I've been reaching out to Ryan Burns. We actually talked about doing a show live if we could get some high-speed internet down there to get back into the studio. We thought about doing a 4-hour show down there.
You know, with all the security that they still have there, I'm assuming owned by Bigelow Aerospace. Yes. I wonder how close you could actually get to bringing equipment near the front entrance of the ranch.
Well, Lee, why don't we get our friend John Alexander? We'll call him up. He organized the NIDS team. We'll see if he'll just pull a favor with us with Bigelow.
Yeah, well, stranger things have happened. That's for sure.
Yeah, we'd love to do something live down there. We've talked about it for a couple of years. We just need to do it in the summertime and kind of do a Skywatch, a live video feed, and then do the radio show live. Ben
has threatened to take me as close to the entrance as possible, throw me over the fence, and then leave me there.
Well, they've moved, and haven't they, Ben? They've gated it up even further now. My understanding is you can't even get as close as you used to be able to.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we can chat later about that. I mean, I know there is some stuff going on that has nothing to do with probably the paranormal. There's an interest there, but I myself have not been up to the gate yet. I had an experience where I filmed a triangle, actually with Ryan Burns at his place, which is a good 45 minutes or so away. Right. Incredible.
Right. Guys, we gotta wrap it up. The hour went too quick, and it was an honor having you both and Scott here in the studio. I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you all.
Let's stay in touch and do it again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thanks for having me on, guys.
Okay, Lee, take care. Hey, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and we wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you at PrepperCon.
Sounds good. And if anyone wants to go for free, we need volunteers.
Okay.
So head on to the website, and we'll see you there.
We'll be promoting it all the way up to the day of the event.
Awesome.
And we'll be there.
Sounds good.
Take care, guys. Good night.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.